Good afternoon, everyone. In addition to the chat piece, Q&A piece that Devin mentioned, if you haven't already, let me ask you to go back to that portion of the CCW website where you entered. We've got a virtual workbook that I'd love for you to download. It's just 2 pages. It's going to be, I think, the easiest way for everyone on the line to just follow along as we start putting pen to paper here. And also, apologies in advance. I've got a 6-month-old in the next room. So if you hear random crying, that's probably who it is. Welcome, everyone. Really excited to share applying low-effort skills in a high-effort world. I think at this point, most of us in the contact center space are familiar with the concept of an effortless experience. I'm assuming many of you had a chance to see Matt Dixon speak yesterday or participate in that session. There is some slight overlap in the sense that we are talking about the same concept, but the approach that we're taking is a bit different. A little bit of background on this research. This all started about 12 years ago when we were part of a company called CEB, or Corporate Executive Board. CEB Corporate Executive Board was a publicly traded company known for producing best practice research. And it did that for about 35 years before being acquired by Gartner, another research firm, about a couple of years ago. But the way this all started about 12 years ago, was we had a number of contact center leaders come to us and say, listen, we're getting a lot of pressure from senior leadership to figure out once and for all how to drive loyalty through customer service, how to drive loyalty through the contact center. Can you guys go out and help us? And so we went out and researched it, and we came back and we said, look, there's some good news and there's some bad news. The bad news is that a lot of what we've been doing up to date is, well, roughly wrong. The good news is that we figured out what's right. And what we figured out is what ultimately drives loyalty is that when something goes wrong, and things go wrong all the time, whether technology breaks down or processes break or something along those lines, right? It's all about how easy we make it for our customers. It's how easy do we make it for them to get their question answered, problem solved, and issues taken care of. And we continue to research that, and we continue to research it. Much of that went into a book called The Effortless Experience, which I think many of you are familiar with. And what I thought we'd do today is provide us some grounding around the 9 low-effort skills that we uncovered during the research. And then we're going to put digital pen to digital paper and begin to practice the skills your reps need to deliver an effortless experience for your customers. And what I've done is I've modified the curriculum your reps would see if they go through our program. These 9 skills are also the skills that are going to get your reps in the mindset, right? Going to change their behavior so that driving an effortless experience becomes part of their DNA. Around 1:45 Eastern, Shandice Anderson, who is from Chick-fil-A, is going to join us to share real-life examples of the application of these 2 skills and the benefits that they've seen. This session is meant to be interactive, but we do have a lot of folks on the line, so I'm just going to reiterate what Devin said. If you can put yourself on mute, I'm going to ask you to hold your questions and or submit them through the Q&A when you have them. And then I'm going to pull up every so often so we can take those questions, and I can also pose a few questions to the group. We also have some time reserved at the end of the session after we speak with Shandice to tackle any Q&A live. So with all that said, let's get started with the 9 skills. Now, we don't have time to walk through all 9 skills. I mentioned we've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. But what I want to make sure everyone in the session knows is that through 10+ years of research, we have identified 9 specific skills, what we call the 9 low-effort skills, that we now know if we can equip our frontline staff with, they can feel confident, we can feel confident, that no matter the scenario, whether we're talking to a tenured customer, a new customer, a happy customer, an irate customer, a customer that's in a tough spot, right? We know that if we can equip our reps with these 9 skills, they can feel confident and we can feel confident that they will be able to deliver a low effort experience every single time. Now, for today's session, we're going to focus on 2 skills in particular, using positive language and acknowledging baggage. Now, something I'll point out is as you look at these 9 skills, you'll notice that they sort of pull up into 3 categories or 3 modules. As you move from left to right, what you'll find is that the first module is a group of foundational skills. The second set are the 201 level skills. And then on the right, we've got the 301 or next level skills, if you will. So we're going to focus our time in the middle there with those 201 level skills, using positive language and acknowledging baggage. Now, at a high level, positive language is all about telling customers what can be done instead of what can't be done. And I want to be clear, we're not trying to be devious or anything like that. We're upskilling our reps to communicate in a different way, in a more effective way. Let me paint a picture of what positive language looks like and why it's important. I'm going to skip past our divider page here and just jump right to it. During our seminal study, we ran a number of A/B experiments, and we provided customers with an issue. You can see it at the top of the page. You're having trouble transferring funds from one online bank account to another account. And we provided, we basically had half those customers that we surveyed got response A, which is our typical answer. Well, you can't transfer funds from this online account to a non-authorized account. There isn't much I can do until you authorize the other account. You need to go back to the account management tab, and under that, you'll see the authorization menu. First, click on da-da-da-da. So half of our survey respondents got that response. The other half got response B over on the right-hand side, the positive language answer. I see the issue. It looks like we need to get that other account authorized for you. This will only take a few seconds, and I'll walk you through the process. Can you go back to the account management webpage? First, let's click on da-da-da-da-da. Different responses, but same outcome, yet look at the scores at the bottom of the page. Customers who received response B rated the quality of experience 82% higher than customers who received response A, and the amount of effort was 73% less. Different interpretation of the experience based on the use of positive language. An exemplar in this space is Disney. I don't know if anyone's ever read this anywhere. It's now somewhat common knowledge, but if you've been to Disney World or Disneyland recently, anytime you're at the park and you say, hey, what time does the park close? At any other park, they're going to tell you the park closes at 4:30. But what Disney's done is they've actually changed their communication technique. So they say things like the park stays open or the park remains open. They avoid the negative word close. It's quite interesting how they've just changed or made some minor changes that has an outsized impact. So the questions that I'd ask you to think about, or the things I'd ask you to think about as we go through this, is the idea of positive language. Is this something you're experiencing, you've experienced as a customer, right? Most of the time I'll tell you, I see negative language or I hear negative language. But if you've experienced positive language, does that change how you interact with an organization? Is this something you've seen your reps do? All right, I mentioned earlier, we're gonna put some pen to paper, right? So I'm gonna make you work a little bit here. So let me ask everyone to grab their digital workbook. You've got the same transcription as I've got on the screen here. Now, when we run this in the classroom, I'm able to play a recording, but I couldn't figure out how to make that work for today's session. So I'm gonna read the transcription. As I read the transcription, listen for the negative language used by the rep. Because after I read this, we're going to take 5 minutes to write down all the negative language you hear, and then take one of those negative instances and rewrite it using only positive language. All right, so bear with me as I role play this on my own here. I'm getting super frustrated. I've been a customer for a long time, and I know that I used to be able to transfer funds on your website. Y'all have made these new changes for security purposes, but you've made it nearly impossible for me to manage my account online. How long have you been how long have you been a customer with us? Why don't you know that? You should be able to see that in my customer notes. Speaking of notes, do you see how long your customers are on hold before you pick up the call? I actually don't see that information. I'm sorry if it was a long time, but you have me now. Let's work on getting your issue handled. It sounds like you were on our newly improved website, which was designed by our security team, but can't seem to find the account information that you're looking for. If you're by your computer now, you can see up at the very top of your screen, you need to click on the customer login. I'm not an idiot. I already did that. I'm logged into my account. It's once I get into the account and want to transfer funds, I now have to go through a secondary security process to make anything happen. This is the part I don't understand. I'm already logged in. So why is it making me go through this again? The login information is different in this step for some reason, and I keep getting kicked out because it says my password is incorrect. Yeah, the second login requires you to once again validate your identity. We don't want fraudulent activity on your account. I know it's a pain, I don't agree with the change either, but it is our security policy. Okay, let's work on getting you past the secondary login screen. Okay. So here's what I'd ask you guys to do. Take your digital workbook and jot down all the negative language you heard. If you don't have the digital workbook, don't worry, I've got this here on the screen, right? Just to jot down all the negative language you see in that transcription. And then I want to ask you to take one of those negative instances and rewrite it using only positive language, telling the customer what can be done rather than what can't be done. Let's take 5 minutes. I've got just about 1 o'clock Eastern. Let's take 5 minutes and do that. Jot down all the negative language you see. And then choose one instance where you're going to rewrite it with positive language. Remember, this is a skill that we teach your reps. This is a skill that we know has an outsized impact on the customer experience that your reps are going to provide your customers. And now we're tasking you with attempting the same thing. So take about 5 minutes to do that. After about 5 minutes, we'll come back as a group. We're going to turn the microphones on, if you will, and we'll do a short debrief. I'm going to go ahead and leave up the transcription just in case folks don't have the virtual workbook. So let's pull up here. This will be our first spot of questions and answers and debriefing. So I've got a few for the group. I've got a couple of questions for the group. And then obviously, if anyone has any questions, I would love to clarify anything possible. I would love it if someone is willing to share what they picked up in terms of negative language. What were some of the negative words or terms they picked up, and then share how you rewrote it, trying to use positive language. Also, I should warn you, I'm not too proud that I won't call on people, but I figured I'd give folks an opportunity to be forthcoming first.
Hi, this is Lynn. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
We can hear you, Lynn. Thanks for being brave.
I figured I'd just jump in before we have similar insights. So a couple of things stick out for me. It would be in regards to the saying sarcastically, newly improved. Then there's, the agreement that, where is it? The agreement that I know it's a pain. Either. I don't agree with the change. I think, those are things that I definitely would not want my team to utilize. I understand empathy, but that's almost going against our own brand and our company and the services. So I think for that, I'd really kind of skip through that. And, he's obviously intelligent enough to know that, yes, these changes do happen for security purposes. So kind of just saying, I know how frustrating it could be when there's a change. I'll certainly walk you through this. And then just jump right into, can you log on to this? He said his piece. We listened to him, and now it's just time to move forward.
Yeah. What's interesting to me, Lynn, and everybody else on the line, when we listened to this transcription the first time, most of us thought, hey, look, it's not the worst call, right? I mean, the rep could have done far worse than he or she did. But there are just little changes that you can make, Lynn, as you pointed out, that can make all the difference, really and truly. I would agree with a lot of what you just said. Would love to hear from maybe someone else if they came up with anything different. Kristen, I think I see you raising your digital hand.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So in the same vein of like little changes, even where he said, but you can't seem to find the account information, just changing that to you are looking for X account information.
Yep.
And then in the last paragraph, he said, we don't want fraudulent activity. So instead of saying that, we're keeping your account safe, or just rephrasing that from the word don't to do.
It's interesting, right? I mean, when you look at the kind of psychology behind all this, we're just so programmed to talk about what can't be done. And it really is a shift in behavior, a shift in mindset to focus on what can be done instead of what can't be done. The joke is that, ever since we're a young kid, we're told no, 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 no. We actually have a number of reps who go through this program who say, actually, positive language, not only did it help me in my job, it helped me in my personal life as well. We're just programmed that way. Kristen, sorry, I see your hand up. I didn't know if there's anything, I might have cut you off. I apologize if I did.
No, I just don't know how to take the hand away once I phrased it, to be honest.
I can do that. I don't know if I can do that or not.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go. a question for some other folks in the group. As you were, here's what we typically find, and we used to run these lunch and learns a couple years ago. We'd have a couple hours, senior leaders like yourself in a room, an hour on the research, and then an hour on positive language. And the exercise of recognizing the negative language was fairly simple. There was some difficulty in really trying to practice or articulate how we would rephrase these using positive language. I'd be curious to get your thoughts, the group's thoughts on, hey, was this a bit of a challenging exercise or not? And then maybe more importantly, are you seeing this at the rep level? Are you seeing your frontline staff demonstrate positive language on a consistent basis? Or is it, maybe a better way of saying that is it one of those things that, you know, is a bit of a challenge to get people to do consistently? Be curious to get anyone's thoughts here.
This is Dawn Holmes. I think one of the biggest things that we see is when an agent gets uncomfortable, they tend to talk more instead of less. And talking more actually causes the situation to get worse. And a prime example is with here, where the agent is saying that the website was designed by our security team. That almost seems condescending. First of all, that information is not necessary. And second of all, it can, in fact, frustrate the customer with making them feel like they're not intelligent enough to maneuver a website.
I would agree. And just to clarify, because I don't think I mentioned this, this is a real transcription. This is a real phone call that did take place that we were able to utilize for these purposes. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that this does come from a real organization and not from my creative mind or anything along those lines. Thanks for sharing, Dawn. Before we move forward a little bit, any clarifications I can make about positive language or any questions I can answer?
I guess I have a question.
Sure.
Is there any language in here that you would clarify as positive language, or you would identify as the right thing to say?
The line that I like, let me find it. Let's see if I don't know if I can highlight it, but you see in the second section or the second answer the rep has, but you have me now. It's not necessarily positive language per se. It would fall under ownership and advocacy, which is one of the other low effort skills. So they're not mutually exclusive, these low effort skills. There's plenty of overlap. But the idea of, listen, recognizing that this was a problem, right? That it's been a long time. We're going to talk about acknowledging baggage here in just a little bit, but recognizing up front that, listen, I'm sorry that this was such a huge issue, but you've got me now. So the idea behind that is, I'm going to help you solve this problem. Now, don't get me wrong, you still have to follow through with that. But the notion of, hey, you've got me now, let's figure this out once and for all. So that's a line that I like. It's just that I would like to see that rep then follow through and solve that problem using positive language and owning and advocating for that customer.
Thanks. That's
Sure.
helpful.
Any other questions or clarifications? Okay, so we're not done putting digital pen to digital paper, but hopefully people are going to get a kick out of put yourself in the shoes of your reps. I want to make this applicable at your organization. I'm going to attempt to put you in breakout rooms through Zoom. There'll be probably 4 or 5 of you in a breakout room. And what I want you to do, what I'd like to ask you to do is take a few minutes to think about a typical call type at your organization where you tend to be negative. Again, this is in your virtual workbook, but I'll give you a sense of what this starts to look like here. Take a few minutes, think about a typical call type at your organization where you tend to be negative. So identify that call type, think through the typical response, and then with the group, with the breakout group, talk through how you would write it using positive language. So here's an opportunity to take a real life example from your organization and sort through, hey, how would we do this at our organization? And ideally, this is something you can take back to the team and start to flesh out and get them excited about something along those lines. So I'm going to do my best. Devin, I'm going to put you on standby here because I have a feeling I'm going to do this wrong. But I'm going to do my best to put everyone into breakout groups. Hold on one second. Here we go. So hopefully that was helpful. Again, it's just it's a flavor here. We're just scratching the surface with one of these 9 skills and one of my favorite skills. And And what I tend to find, I heard some really good things as I visited the breakout rooms, some really great ideas, some thoughts around what we're doing negatively and how we can position that in a positive manner. Here's the question I'd ask you to think about, and then a second question to follow up with a second follow-up question that I'd be curious to get your thoughts on. The first question I'd ask you to think about is, are you seeing your reps, agents, frontline staff, whatever you call them, demonstrate this skill of positive language? And then I'd be curious to get anyone's thoughts, if they're willing to share, why or why not? Why are we not seeing our reps demonstrate these skills? What's standing in the way? Is there something standing in the way? Or is it, hey, look, they just don't know to do these things? I'd be curious to get anyone's last thoughts before we move on. Okay, well, if anyone thinks of something, send it to me in the chat and we'll tackle it there. Again, hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully it starts to give folks the sense of what positive language is all about, how it can be applied at your organization. The second skill we're going to talk about is acknowledging baggage. And this skill is a little less obvious, so I'm going to skip the divider here. And I want to spend a second just talking first about what it is. We've got a definition here. A customer's past experiences, perceptions, or facts that occurred before the interaction. While not necessarily related to the resolution of the customer's current issue, these influence the customer's expectation of service and therefore the perception of the interaction. Here's an interesting statistic. 92% of people bring some sort of baggage to an interaction. In fact, some customers have multiple types of baggage simultaneously. I'll paint a picture of what this starts to look like. We've got a scenario at the top of the page. So you have ordered a tablet online, you're having problems with the battery charge is going down way too fast, you call customer service to try to get a resolution to the problem. The baggage that you are bringing with you is the baggage that so many of us bring with us, which is we've had multiple contacts with that company about the same issue and it's just not getting resolved. And we've got the typical response in response A. Hey, thanks for your purchase. I understand that you're having a problem with the battery. Let's start from the beginning by going to settings to make sure that you're not using any feature that is draining your battery more quickly than normal. I assume that sounds familiar to most everyone on the line. Certainly sounds familiar to me. Let's take a look at the low effort response or the acknowledging baggage response. Okay, thanks for your purchase. I understand that you're having a problem with the battery. According to our system, it looks like you've called several times about this. Is that right? Okay, thanks. Can you tell me what you've tried already and what has or hasn't worked to help preserve the battery life? Then we can take it from there instead of repeating stuff you've already tried. Now, here's why this is important. Back to our research and the A/B tests that we ran. Half of our respondents got response B, where we address the baggage. Those customers rated the quality of experience 98% higher than customers who received response A, and the amount of effort 84% less. So we take a step back, 92% of customers have baggage. When we address it, 98% higher quality of experience, yet our research also found that only 23% of reps do this. Here's a question for you. It's rhetorical, but I'd love you to think about it. Thoughts as to why reps don't address baggage? It's actually a variety of reasons. Right? People are frightened of doing so. Hey, I know this person's called a few times, but it's not my issue. I didn't talk to the person. So if I pretend it didn't happen, it didn't really happen. Also, it could be that they simply don't know it exists. They don't know how to address it. It can seem complicated, even though it's not. And I'll admit, this is a little bit trickier than, say, positive language. There are two components to acknowledging baggage: demonstrating the right behaviors and understanding what types of baggage to acknowledge. So let's take a look at the first. What does it mean to handle baggage? What are the behaviors of a rep who acknowledges baggage? 3 steps a rep can take. Identify it or surface it. You do that by asking questions about anything that's happened previously. Acknowledge it. Hey, the rep has understood the situation of the customer. And then advocacy and ownership. We've talked a little bit about this already. Let's treat this customer the way that that customer feels like they deserve to be treated. You're probably picking up on it, but just to clarify, these 3 components or 3 steps are not mutually exclusive. There's clearly some overlap. But this is the first component of acknowledging baggage, these 3 steps. The second is understanding what types of baggage needs to be recognized because not everything needs to be acknowledged. And you can do that through filters of recency and impact. We see it in the middle of the page. Let's start on the left-hand side of the page, though. That's all the stuff we have access to through a variety of things, systems, institutional knowledge, whatever it may be. In the middle, though, is the key. Our filter of whether to acknowledge the baggage or not, recency and impact. Recency tends to be pretty straightforward. How recent is the baggage? Impact, not as much. And so to clarify, it's the impact to the customer. People often ask, well, how do I figure out if something is impacting the customer? To be frank, the easiest way to figure out if something is impacting the customer is if the customer brings it up. If the customer brings up something, it has impact. A simple example, some sort of failure of ours cost the customer, I don't know, $10. To you, high impact might be $1,000. But to the customer, $10 is high impact. So if it's high impact to the customer, it's got to be high impact to us as well. High impact is in the eye of the beholder. So as a rep, you have to listen for these cues. Because what that does is it lands us on the right-hand side where we filtered out all the stuff that doesn't matter, so we can land on the things that actually do matter, the things that we definitely need to acknowledge. So the key takeaway when it comes to acknowledging baggage is that our reps, they have access to this information, but it's not all relevant. So it becomes critical to identify the relevant baggage and then run right at it. Just like we did with positive language, I want to give us a chance to try this out. Okay, I'm going to put people back in their breakout sessions. If you've got your virtual workbook again, it's the second page in it. And as a group, I'm going to ask you to brainstorm these answers, right? Which scenarios require acknowledging baggage and which ones don't? And the key here is to go back, is to go back here and think about, hey, did this recently happen? And or is it highly impactful to the customer? Those are our filters here as we think about these scenarios. And for me, this is where we start to separate ourselves from the rest of the pack. When we were walking through the conversation, the transcription, the question was, was there anything I liked in the transcription? And I said, oh, it's that ownership piece where I'm saying, hey, you've got me. Now we're going to figure this out. At most organizations, what you tend to find around acknowledging baggage is what I alluded to earlier. Hey, I see this person called a few times earlier. I'm guessing the person's been on the website too. But it wasn't my fault. If I just don't acknowledge it, it's like it didn't happen. The person can't get upset with me. And that's different from a low effort organization that is going to say, hey, look, I see that person's been on the website a few times. My hunch is they've probably called, they've called a few times. My hunch is they've also been on the website. Let me just run right at it. So, hey, Mr. Rothman, see you called a few times. I'm assuming you've been on the website as well. Yeah, it's driving me crazy. I need someone who can fix this for me. Well, here's the good news. You've got me once and for all. We're going to figure this out. So you're running right at it. So I'm going to put everyone back in breakout rooms. Let's spend about, we're going to spend about 8 or so minutes on this exercise. We'll come back and we will debrief for a couple of minutes. And then we're going to hear from Shandice at Chick-fil-A. So I will leave this up for those of you that don't have your virtual workbook, and we'll just start cracking here. Okay. Okay, fantastic. So again, hopefully people are getting some joy, if you will, out of putting themselves in the shoes of the reps and practicing some of these skills. They can be tricky when we haven't done them in a little while, and it's definitely a different muscle to flex. I'm really excited to announce, and by the way, we will debrief on that exercise, but I want to push pause on that because I'm excited to announce that Shandice Anderson has joined us. Shandice is from Chick-fil-A, excuse me. She is the Senior Team Lead Knowledge and Training and has been instrumental in the success of the Effortless program at Chick-fil-A. So Shandice, thanks so much for joining us. I'll turn it over to you for a little bit of a better intro than I could do, and then we'll just jump right in. But before I do, again, to the group, I just want to remind everyone that Shandice has agreed to join us and provide that real life experience that she has had and her team has had with these skills. So Shandice, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Scott. So again, hi everyone. I'm not sure I can see everyone's face. So it feels like I'm talking to a computer screen, but that's okay. Again, I am with Chick-fil-A Corporate, so Chick-fil-A Inc. Been with the organization for a little over 3 years. Started as a quality assurance lead and have led that team through this implementation of the effortless experience. And now I have moved on to the knowledge and training team. So I am excited to be talking about what I consider part of my legacy within the Chick-fil-A Help Department, and just to share some of the benefits that we've seen and the impact and results that we've seen as a result of implementing this.
Thanks, Shandice. Along those lines, can you share, and I know I've got your presentation up, hopefully, if anyone can't see it, please let me know. But we've got Shandice's presentation up here. Can you share one or two examples of how or when these skills have been applied?
Sure. So before we jump there, can you jump to slide 3 for me, please, Scott? Yeah. And I'll just give everyone a little bit of background about Chick-fil-A Help. And so we are a help desk of 180 plus people, analysts and support roles and leads. Of that, we have 9 QA analysts, and I'll be jumping around this slide a little bit, just kind of highlighting the big buckets here. Those 9 analysts have been able to accomplish year to date 6,730 competency reviews. And what we consider competency reviews are those reviews where we're listening to calls and we're assessing 6 of these low effort skills that we talked about. And of course, as an organization, we recognize the importance of positive language. And so we decided that that would be part of our goal for 2020, to have positive language, have all of our analysts be at least at an effective mastery level by end of 2020, and we are well on our way there. You will see that year to date, 91.82%, which is 101 of our 110 analysts are trending effective or higher in positive language. And again, we can skip to that question you had asked about application, Scott.
Yep, sorry, I think I just am having a technical issue. Bear with me.
No worries.
What's going on? There we go, hopefully. Give me 1 second. Apologies, everyone.
Now I can see everyone.
Okay, bear with me. Apologies. Let me try this one more time. The joys of attempting to work from home.
And Scott, it's okay if you're unable to pull it up. I can answer your questions without it if need be.
Okay, I think I've got it. Good news.
Awesome.
Sorry, everyone. Crisis averted, I think. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think the first question that I assume, and we can open this up to the group as well, but would love we've been talking about these 2 skills. We have been practicing some of the application, but obviously you've seen this occur in real life, right? So are you able to share 1 or 2 examples of how or when these skills have been applied?
Awesome. Yes, I sure can. So I think slide 5 is where I'd have you go.
Okay.
Perfect. So in terms of application, we think about this COVID-19 response. And as many of you know, if there's anyone on this call that's in the restaurant business, it's a high energy, high paced environment. And coupled with COVID-19, the organization has had to just change how we operate. And so we've diverted to drive-through only. So how we've applied on our desk at knowledge and baggage and positive language here is our audience or our customer is the restaurant. So we're serving our operators and our team members. We're not talking to guests any at all. And so restaurants are calling in when they either can't sell chicken or something's wrong with some form of technology. So it's important for our analysts to go ahead and apply that empathy, just acknowledging the baggage to say, hey, we understand you're in a high stress environment, but we're here to help you, kind of talking them off that ledge, and just applying as much positive language as possible. So that's one way we have done this, because again, as we know, COVID-19 has been unprecedented times for us all. And the analysts have just totally flexed this skill during this time, and we're getting great reviews as a result of that. Another way we've applied these skills is we have recently, actually June the 18th, we rolled out a new help support model. And Chick-fil-A, we are it's gone again. It's fine. Got it.
There we go.
We're very relational at Chick-fil-A. And so this new model, we introduced a new channel, which forces people to create tickets on the Help Online portal if it's not a critical issue. And so that was a huge challenge that we saw internally. And we had to leverage the analysts and coach them specifically on acknowledging baggage again and positive language to say, hey guys, we know this is new, but let me walk you through how you can actually submit a ticket on the Help Online portal. And we've seen, again, a great success there. In fact, I'll get into the results later and share some of that with you. Another way we've applied that skill is, again, just this whole effortless experience launch. We recently launched in January. And again, we have just seen such an amazing influence or positive impact that it has had even on our analysts, how they've developed, how their writing skills, not only just their verbal, but their written skills have improved. And so since the launch, I mean, we've just gotten rave reviews from our operators and restaurants in general whenever we send out our feedback. And we do get a lot of feedback because every Help Online interaction, there is a Qualtrics survey attached to that. And we just keep being bombarded and overwhelmed with the amount of positive results we've gotten about positive language, especially. And then, yeah, I'll get into the results really quickly. Since we launched Effortless Experience, or Effortless, in January of this year, we've seen 64.7% of our respondents strongly agree that help has made it easy for them to resolve their issues. And we, at the beginning of the year, revamped our CSAT. And this question in particular is our effortless question. So this is all encompassing, but this allows us to know that, yes, they agree that their experience is effortless. And then again, since we launched the new model, which I spoke about in terms of the application in June, 75% of our respondents strongly agree that help has made it easy for them. So we're noticing that as we apply these skills more and we coach these skills, in particular positive language, we are noticing a direct impact that it is having on our restaurants.
Thanks, Shandice. I'll open it up to the group. If there are any questions that you would like to ask Shandice, she's more than happy to take those. So I'll give everyone a quick second here before I jump to my next question.
Have you found that in the applying positive language, that there are particular, like, is it more of a talent or a skill?
That's a good question. So I think it's a little bit of both. Some people innately have it, right? You have some people who are just natural optimists and they just get it right off the bat. And there are some who it's a skill that you have to hone and develop. And we're noticing a little bit of both in our department. And so that's where the coaching plays a huge role. And we've seen, because our QA analysts meet once per month with all 110 analysts and coach to these skills. So if someone is falling below, we're coaching to them. There's also that aspect of integrated coaching. And so we're holistically helping them to hone that skill if we notice it's not coming innately. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks for the question, Roy. And just from a research perspective, I think what Shandice just articulated is what we typically see. Usually there are, if you think about staff on a bell curve, that higher end, and Roy, I think you kind of mentioned this in the chat, top 20% we find usually demonstrate some other low effort skills, maybe positive language, maybe acknowledging baggage. They don't necessarily know they're doing it. They just have it, right? It's a talent that they have, as Shandice mentioned. But the good news here is that these skills can be taught, just like anything else, right? So thanks for that, Roy. Any other questions from the group? Shandice, while they're thinking, obviously we've got leaders on the phone here, not the reps themselves. And I'd be curious to get your thoughts as a leader at Chick-fil-A. What is if you could articulate a benefit or two that you as a leadership team have seen because of these skills, whether that's because of, hey, it's the customer experience or some things we're seeing from a score perspective, whatever it may be. I'd just be curious to get your thoughts specifically as a leader at the organization, what this has done for you and the organization.
Okay, so if you can forward to the next slide for me, Scott.
Love it. Just taking it up here. This one?
Yep,
Okay.
that is. So here are just thematically what we've seen as some of the benefits to, and I think it was to the analysts you said, or just to the organization?
Analysts or organization, but the perspective you have as a leader.
Perfect. So here's my perspective. One, we've noticed a significant difference in the number of respondents from a customer satisfaction survey point of view. And we're not only just noticing that our respondents have increased, we're getting more people to fill out that commentary box, right? And that's where we're gathering a lot of this feedback on how great we're doing. And I'll share some verbatims with you as to the things that we're hearing. So our restaurant satisfaction, which is paramount, has increased, I would say, significantly since we've introduced this concept of effortless. And we're just blown away by the responses that we've been receiving from a leadership level. The second piece is just analyst development. So a lot of these skills are transferable, and we're noticing a direct correlation with this positive language and how analysts are writing in their tickets. They're more professional. It's developing their relationship building skills as well. So they're no more confident. They feel as if they can have crucial conversations, as we call it, with their team leads, and by demonstrating some of these positive language skills that they have learned throughout this process. And we're noticing that direct correlation and transfer of skills there. The other piece is just the customer engagement. So we have stated that we, as an organization, our goal is to be the world's most caring company. And we're recognizing that as a result of these skills, we have been able to engage with our customers, which are our operators again, and our team members, on a lot more relational basis. It makes the interaction seem less stoic. And so we're just recognizing that people want to interact with us. They are happy to call us. And again, we have this phrase at Chick-fil-A, we're Chick-fil-A nice, and we truly are. So we really don't have that issue, but it's just playing out in a different way now where, restaurants are calling in and they're just calling us out for the level of engagement and how positive and courteous we are. And they're comparing us to the experience in the restaurants now, which is amazing. And then last but not least, another way we've seen this as a leadership team, the benefits of these skills is just through actionable coaching, right? Before we would actually speak to people and they'd be like, well, it seems subjective, but we are giving them actionable steps that they need to complete in order to grow. So even in those QA competency reviews, it's not just, oh, you did this. It's here's how, or here are statements, or here are phrases in which you can use in your next interaction to make it more positive. So analysts in return are taking this feedback to heart. And this feedback is also visible to team leads who again are integrating this in their coaching as well. So it's a holistic view that we've taken, and we've seen that through this actionable coaching, analysts are just thriving, and we're just seeing the benefits of it on our CSAT results.
Thanks, Shandice. I know we have, we're a little bit over time here. If you've got another minute, I think you mentioned some verbatims. If you're willing to share those, we can maybe
so
wrap
if
up
you,
with those.
Yep, if you go to the next slide, I think that's where they are. Yep. So here are some of our verbatims. So very positive and professional service. I would have never expected to have fun while resolving store issues on the phone with IT. Very positive and kind as well as helpful. Very pleasant person, made the call enjoyable. Chris quickly understood my problem and gave me a clear instruction on how to resolve my problem. He also explained clearly the timeline I could expect for my issue to be resolved. So here we see a common theme and thread. And while, Scott, it's important for me to point out that we don't currently assess acknowledging baggage. We've been trained on it, but positive language is just one of the ones that we've just fully honed into, and we've said at the beginning of the year, by end of year, we'd like to be effective, and we're seeing this play out day to day, just by the verbatims we're receiving and through those CSAT results.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Before we let her go, any final questions for Shandice? All righty, Shandice, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Hopefully this was helpful.
We'll talk to you soon.
All righty. Have a good one.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All righty. Let me bring us back really quickly. All right. I know we're running down low on time. Sorry, we're having some serious technical issues over here. We've got just about 10 minutes left. I want to make sure that you get to your next session on time. I will go ahead and share my screen one more time. Hopefully it is there. Hopefully that was helpful. I know it's always important to hear from folks who have done this and traveled down this path. And Shandice is always a fun person to talk to. Here's what we've got left. One, I've put a couple of links into the chat. So if you go back to the chat, you'll see these. One is if you want more information, it just takes you to our website. Two, we've got a couple of key takeaway documents. So 2 one-pagers that outlines positive language and what we should be doing, as well as one-pager on acknowledging baggage as well. Before we wrap up, I did want to at least spend the time I had promised on this acknowledging baggage skill and this exercise here. So before I let you go, want to just open up to the room to see if there are any questions, comments, or clarifications that I can make about acknowledging baggage. Again, it's a skill that's a little bit less obvious than positive language. So I want to make sure we're giving it the time it deserves, especially because I messed up by not sharing the screen when I was walking through the key components of it. Any questions, comments, clarifications I can help with?
So Scott, one of the 8, the one that we had the most discussion about was number 6. 6, okay. Okay. And the discussion was around, you know, should you or should you not acknowledge the wait time?
What, just out of curiosity, did the group come to a consensus, or was it just a lot of back and forth? Because this one is, we typically get a lot of back and forth on this one.
So our consensus was, it's the polite thing to do to acknowledge it and thank them for being patient.
Yeah. So I'll say this much. First of all, none of these situations on the page are clear. They're all pretty much gray areas, except maybe for number 8. Number 8 is fairly clear. We do tend to promote the acknowledgement of, listen, you've been on hold for a long time. That stinks, right? Hey, really sorry about it. I know that's frustrating, especially with everything going on. We acknowledge it and then we move on, right? So let's just acknowledge it, because that customer is going to be frustrated. And it's not that acknowledging is going to make us feel better. I mean, think about yourself as a customer, but it's when we don't acknowledge it, when customers tend to get pretty upset. And so just running right out to say, hey, look, I see that you've been waiting online for a long time. Appreciate the patience. You've got me let's figure this out once and for all so we can get you on with your way, with your day. Does that start to answer the question, Roy?
Perfectly. Thank you.
All righty. Fantastic. Any other clarifications or questions I can answer before we start to wrap up? Okay, so that you guys can get on to the next session, why don't we wrap up a few minutes early? As I mentioned in the chat, you will find two links, the two links that you see here. One for just additional information on the website, key takeaways from today's session. You can also email or call me just above there. I'm happy to chat more, happy to clarify anything additional. Otherwise, greatly appreciate the time today, greatly appreciate the conversation. Hopefully there's an interesting insight or fun takeaway that you are able to leave with because of the exercises. I always comment that if you haven't or aren't leaving one of my sessions with something that you didn't have when you came in, I haven't done my job. So please send me an email, give me a call if that is the case. Want to make sure that you're taking something away from today's session. Otherwise, please jump to your next session. I'm happy to stick around for another 5 or 10 minutes if you want to chat more. Maybe go grab a snack, whatever it may be, but happy to stick around for a little bit longer. Otherwise, thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Have a good day.